Hey, welcome to my channel. I'm Lacking Logic. Um, my last video was kind of an intro of what I wanted to talk about in my videos. So I'm going to kind of do this one a little more direct onto something. Today I want to talk about awakening and the way we see awakening. It's kind of a bunch of different kind of aspects of our reality. Certain certain people can become awakened, and it's an achievable thing that's not, you know, it's not very relatable. And those who do become awakened usually generally become philosophers. Um, Basing on experience, I would say they tend to give up on the material world. They see things very differently, and we perceive this in various different ways, whether you consider it enlightenment or Christ consciousness. um, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. In general, religion is kind of the way, like towards like Christ consciousness type stuff. But in general, like, that's just like kind of a tear down of what it actually is. And what it actually is being awakened. Um, if you're talking about anybody that seems very like wise or intuitional, they could be some kind of clairvoyant in a way. They get very um, knowledgeable. Uh, they're seekers and deep thinkers. Um, but and based on my experience, it's a sense of understanding, uh, understanding yourself. Because if you understand yourself, you understand the whole, in a sense. That's kind of the premise of awakening, is branching out your perspective, where you stop seeing things as they are, and you start seeing them as they come, as it is. And with awakening, like, we get confused with, especially with religion. I'll do a separate video on religion, but awakening can be very ego driven. Like, a lot of people can reach awakening if they let go of their ego. You gotta let go of your perspective of life, because you're trying to reach the perspective of life, right? Which is all perspectives. And that's kind of like the paradox I was talking about in the last video. Is you start to realize that no matter what you do, like, the process of life, it feeds off of negative and positive. So, you know, um, when you're on your path of awakening, you can get into these stages of egotism, because it's all over the internet. You become very what's the word? You become very egotistic and above people. You feel above people in a sense, because when you're awakened, you kind of do see things very differently than the normal people, because as they want to consume and provide comfort and security, and they depend on the government or somebody directing them. As long as they got direction told to them, they got provided intelligence, or provided knowledge that allows them to live their life, as in somebody who seeks the knowledge of on their own, or becomes aware. The whole point is to gain a perspective that's broader than yours. If you give up your perspective of who you are, and when Buddha says it, or in Wu Wei or whatever, let it go. It's the process. That's it. Let it go. Let go of your perspective of who you are. Um, and when you do that, it's scary. I know, and a lot of people think that you're giving up so much of who you are, but you don't understand of how much the world built you, or how much your environment built and developed you. Without your knowledge. Majority of people don't even realize who they are, but they seem to know what they want. And generally, that doesn't make sense, but in a society where the majority of people are fighting for that gain, eh, as a minority, you can't really fight it out. The minority doesn't overthrow the majority unless your argument is good enough. In that case, the statement still stands. But the point is, a small knit group, like the ones that are awakened, it's very hard for them to express how they see the world to those who don't care. They don't care. They generally do not care. They only care about going to their job, waking up, making sure their kids go to school, going to their job, and coming home and I'm just trying to live day to day. I'm just trying to get past. I'm just, you know what I mean? But that's their lie. That's their lie that they want to tell, because they're trying to seek something that's not there. They're constantly going back to the hole to dig for that gold. They're like, well, it's gonna be there. So, what are you trying to achieve? You're gonna find gold, and the only thing you're gonna do is start digging for more, because you don't know anything outside of digging for gold, in a sense. But if you give up that idea that you need to constantly seek something, constantly push yourself to climb this, it's talked about the ladder of success. People talk about the ladder of success. If you're trying to constantly achieve that, you're never going to be satisfied, because you're only wanting. Sorry, I got to do it backwards. You're only wanting. You're never giving. You're only wanting. And then the whole perspective, like my last video, is really going deep into the psychology of how people like we're connected very deep. And it comes from our consciousness is connected. And it's disrupted right now because there's a lot of people that, in a sense, it's supposed to. That, like I said, that's the paradox. Like, what is it? God rules over heaven for this, and then the devil takes over something, whatever. Like I said, I don't get into all that stuff. I don't need to retain information if the information is out there. If I can regurgitate what I'm saying that can be validated with that information, then that's kind of my goal. But I'm not going to sit here and try to, like, oh, well, verse 16, this, that, and the other. I'll go off the top of my head, and if I can remember it, I'll try to, but um, when you, I lost track. When you're awakening, it's a process of not wanting to strive for something that's mundane anymore. You know what I mean? And that's where I was at, is we're connected psychologically together, and that's our consciousness. Our psychology is just the it's like the little perspectives of individuals. That's what I see psychology and psychiatry as. They're the perspective of individuals, and we're trying to figure out why, well, this person has this problem, this person has that problem, blah, blah, blah. I'll get into that stuff too later, because I do have a very broad understanding of what psychological problems are doing, like why they're caused. Like, people want to talk about what they're doing to people, but I want to talk about how they're caused, and psychologically based on our environment. I don't care about the drugs. I don't care about the crimes and this, that, and the other. What I want to know why our psyche broke. You know what I mean? Or why our psyche decided to take these paths. But nonetheless, like, if we're building an idea of uh, a way to understand our connected consciousness, then we have to understand that, like, my perspective would be your perspective, would be their perspective. You know what I mean? Like, it's a form of, so awakening is a form of, if I understand the self, then if I understand the self, I understand the whole, right? So if you take psychology to understand the self, and you understand the self, and you use philosophy to understand the whole, right? Because it's the output. That's the output that you need. The psychology is the inner work. The philosophy is the outer expression that you use once you fix yourself. And to be honest, in this day and age, at least right now in times, our like life is bumps and valleys and whatever, mountains and valleys. So up here, you're going to be at the peak of a society. Ooh, society is great. Yay. Down here, we don't have society. We may have tribes or small knit communities, whatever. But we don't have a strong society. At these peaks right here, or vice versa, these could be your society. What, you can look at it however you want, but the idea still stands. Your perspective of it should not change the idea of what it's doing. So if you're starting off in a society that's up here, you've got everybody in a comfort zone, in their insecurity. And what happens when that society falls and people are no longer dependent on that society, and they're thrown back into, well, this in my case would be Mother Nature. If I were to put the two opposites together, like these are the polar opposites of what's happening in our reality, societies fall and rise. So you'd have Egypt, Rome, Babylon, America. It doesn't matter. And even like today, because I know some people can be soft, it doesn't have to be America. It could be any country that has had strong development in their societies. Because societies are nothing but their control, right? So, but when we're down in here, when we're in the think of the Native American, oh, they're savage people, blah blah. If you think peace is all about not like doing any harm, and peace isn't about suffering, then you have no idea what peace is about. Peace has to happen for chaos to happen. Chaos has to happen for peace to happen. They are balanced. They understand each other. Peace doesn't hold all the glory and state that, oh, we're the best, we're the greatest. That doesn't matter. They both work together and they're both needed. Our societies are built because we get bored of being in Mother Nature for so long, right? And when we leave Mother Nature, we start getting, like, I believe our psyche is kind of connected like crystals are. They talk to each other around the world. It might be reefs. I think it's crystals. Either or. I think they both work in the same perspective, in my sense, or the same way in my sense. But the perspective of like a crystal forming over here on this side of the world, and it's feeding information like psychologically, because they're not physically near each other. And it learns the information. So that means that there's a consciousness highway up there that, like, we're not connected. Majority of us are not connected to anymore. But when you get down here in the valleys, and societies will disconnect us from that consciousness field, very much so. But nature, because it's got such a low, I mean, it's got such a low standard for living. All you got to do is pretty much survive if you know how to hunt for food, blah blah blah. But in general, like nature's it's pretty bland. But what happens at the end of a society? People start getting eager. They start wanting a different way of life. Like it's a psychological change. They no longer want the society anymore. They want an easier life, right? And then eventually when life becomes too easy and it's too leisurely, I don't want to live off of society, or I don't want to live off of nature anymore. I want to take my own path. I want to have control now. So then we build another society. We could call it Hombora Land, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. The name doesn't matter. You just need to understand that what we do is build and it falls. Builds and it falls. Builds. And I'm not saying that like maybe this isn't like the path of humanity. That's kind of what I'm trying to get to with this like video stuff is I'm trying to find humanity a purpose outside of war, outside of like laws, like man created laws. Like our purpose is so weird. Majority of people don't even have a purpose. Their only purpose is their career. And majority of people pick their career over like even a family. That's the one thing that life needs is for you to reproduce, right? And if you're choosing a career over that, then I mean it's fine that you do what you want to do, but I'll tell you this. A career now will make you happy. It'll make you a lot of money. And it can be it could be very lucrative, but over time it becomes very dull, it becomes very depressing, and it becomes very mundane. The opposite happens with kids. The beginning is fucking horrible. It's a nightmare. You're changing. You're trying to understand what the hell you just created. You're trying to wrap your head around the fact that you're a parent now and you have to do what you need to do to make sure that this thing doesn't die, that this thing survives and loves you. You know, you don't want it to resent you because that's what's going to happen in over time. See, when you raise children over time, if you're a proper parent, your child should love you. Your child should take care of you. Your child like that should be their want. That like I can guarantee you if I was raised in a more loving family, I definitely would have like I would have been there more. I would have definitely have been a part of my family more. But because it was so sporadic, it was so odd. Like I didn't feel the need to. And I don't think that that's because my parents were taught by their parents, were taught by their parents, you know, so it's a cycle that's constantly boop, 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 boop. So it's like I want to break that cycle. I want to be there for my kids. I don't want to choose a career. I remember both my parents worked my entire life. Both my parents worked. My mom at least to her mid 40s, at least. And my dad's still working. There's there's no way he'll retire. He doesn't know how. He doesn't know how to retire. And I think that's a problem with a lot of uh, the prior two generations, like the old ones that idolize work. And when you idolize work, that's when it starts getting creepy to me because it means that you're willing to give up your entire life for a company that you honestly don't give a shit about. You're just trying to pay your bills. You're just trying to fit into society in a sense. But fitting like being outside of this stuff, trying to achieve something outside of $1 billion is frowned upon. A philosopher does not make very much money unless you create videos that are like lucrative or books or you write a book or you do seminars. Other than that, teaching philosophy is very shit. At least for the most part. I know there might be people out there that, oh, well, I make this much. Okay, well, how many books did you write? Some people write books. Some people are good at writing books. Write a book. But I'm not chasing money. I'm not going to. I don't feel the need to. I don't care. I don't care enough about money to want to chase it. If I did, I'd be living in a mansion, and I'm not there. So I obviously don't want that enough. And that's kind of a thing with awakening, is I gained a perspective that was greater than mine, which created a purpose for me in a sense. I don't want to be, a type of know-it-all fella. I don't want to be that. I just want to talk about how I see the world, how I understand things. And maybe somebody might pick it up too. But that's kind of the point of all this. Is if I'm thinking about it, there's somebody else thinking about it. Right? And if I'm a conduit to provide information to the small knit group of people that I know, even if they don't want to hear it, I still talk about it. People know what I talk about. They just don't care. They just don't care. But if there's more people out there, and there's a bunch of people out there. I see them all the time. I think a lot of people give themselves less credibility than they deserve. I honestly do. There's a lot of people out there that deserve a lot more than they have. In a sense of like their confidence towards their intelligence, in a sense, because building an intelligence based off society is not the way to go, because the only thing that's going to do is provide you the benefits of society. So when that society starts to crumble, you have no information on what you're even going to be in for if the damn thing collapses. Because if you're dependent when they stand, if you're dependent on them when they're here, you're going to be dependent on them when they fall. And they don't care about you when they fall. But if I'm a conduit, and there's another person that's a conduit, and there's another person and it could be 20,000 miles away, don't matter. If I'm a conduit, there could be there's more than likely another conduit. I don't think Jesus, if Jesus was real, I'm not going to say yes or no, because I'm very touchy on religion and things like that, because the same, like, just because Jesus was one Son of God doesn't mean there weren't others, right? And I'm not trying to compare myself to Jesus in any way, because like I said, on a religious stance, I don't care. That I don't give a crap about religion. You can preach to who you want, but in my sense of idea, Jesus was just another man who was trying to kind of rock the system, and they didn't like that because he got pretty close. And in a sense, he kind of did. Rome fell. It took a little while, but if it wasn't for his teachings, to be honest, that's the thing too, because in society, you're always searching for comfort and pleasure. That's a big one in society, is pleasure seeking. Those who seek pleasure, they do not know the path of awakening. They do not, because that's all they want. And the more you do, the more pleasure you indulge in, the more you're going to have to do to get the same results. So when you see like weirdos that go from, like, I don't know, they sniff a lady's sock or something, like, okay, that's bare minimal. But in order to get that same thrill, you got to go somewhere a little higher. And then you know what I mean? And then it snowballs. And it snowballs because you're not allowing yourself to get away from the pleasure for a moment. Because a lot of people in society are in society because they're scared of what's out here. Because they're scared they won't survive. They have sure fucking thing here. I got walls that I can hide behind and fatten myself up, relax, watch TV. Absolutely. But you're dumb. I'm sorry to say, you're just a consumer. I don't care how smart you think you are online. If you are upholding this consumer value, you are dumb. You are a part of the dumb. That's rude to say, but that's sorry, not sorry. Because this, trust me, dumb does not mean like completely stupid. Because over time, those people will understand when it's falling. There will be people, even in the dumb crowd. But that's the thing, is because they're very strong, they're very resilient. They can be. Is when you get down here, they're willing to accept. They're willing to accept what needs to be done. At least those who made it out, and that's the ironic thing. Like if you shut off the electricity tomorrow, or if they did, we don't have any control over electricity. So if they shut it off tomorrow, how many people do you think would survive never turning it back on? They will never turn it back on. How many people do you think would survive? How many people do you think would actually walk away from the system? They wouldn't. What they would do is rebuild it. What would they? Because not everybody gets to this point, and I don't even think the Native Americans, as far as I can as far as I can understand, are the last people that were connected to nature, like respectively. Um, but anyway, like they listened to like the All Mother, which was the planet that are in religious sense. I want to say this right now because it will come up again, but the father and the mother have a baby, right? So, in my perspective, the son is whatever you would call as God. It's just the sun, but it gives us life in a sense. But the earth is our mother. It's our environment. Uh, if you base them off of like uh, the reproductive system of a male and a female, like a male holds the essence of what the earth can become, right? So if you think of the earth as like an egg, not literally, because I know people online can be very dumb, but if you think of the earth as an egg or a mother's reproductive, you know, and the essence of the sun allows heats up the water, and it allows um like microscopic bacteria and stuff to grow. Single cell organisms turn into multi-cell organisms, turn into um, self what are like symbiotic organisms, because like humans are, a lot of our body is symbiotic. It's all everything works together, but it's generally separate, right? It all works together though. But anyway, the earth and the sun are, in my perspective, the father and the mother. I don't see anything outside of that. I don't see why people don't mention the earth. But when they talk about religion, I don't hear it hardly ever. I don't. And I think that's the reason why I don't like religion, is because religion is willing to just, in a sense, destroy or alter. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do what we can with the earth, but I think with our intelligence as a species, we should be doing it responsibly. And I think if we could, a lot of us could reach the nature point where we not all become awakened, but everyone. Like, even Because like I said, it's a balance between good and bad, quote unquote, good and bad, whatever. Like it's a system that has to go. So these people that are like, the thing that we should do is forgive them. Like, I know that sounds bad, but what we should do is just like, in order to hurt a lot of the people that are hurting us, is we need to do what we shouldn't do, which is stop consuming. We shouldn't consume anymore. We should find our way to understand uh, consuming in a different way. And there's a lot of people out there now that are gaining their knowledge and nutrients and stuff like that. And I think that's a very important thing, like, especially with awakening. Like I said, it's a based off of perspective. Your awakening is. It's no longer thinking about your perspective, but the perspective. And the perspective is based on everyone's perspective. Empaths are very good at that. They're very good because they can put themselves in the shoes of other people, even if they're not generally met them before. You know what I mean? It's just that the way that energy works, like, it's there. Like, I don't see why people don't understand. Like, if you have a consciousness, it comes from somewhere. I believe it comes from the active current from the earth or the sun, and the earth gives us the body, the mind, to allow us to, like, understand the world, right? And I think with that understanding, we should be able to do something for the world. You know what I mean? Like, if we think we're the most apex predator on this planet, or the top guru of this planet, whatever we are, like, we're the biggest, baddest on this planet. I hate to fucking burst your bubble, but the planet itself is alive and it's bigger than us. And it houses absolutely everything we've ever thought about and the earth is just chilling. It doesn't think about what it's thinking about on the inside. I mean, I'm sure the earth probably has a sense of inner self, but generally, like, come on. We're the baddest. It's like, and I think that's kind of the point of what we're trying to do with Earth, why we don't mention Earth being so, oh, we got Earth Day. No, I mean religious. If a lot of religious people took towards the idea that Jesus, like, think of it in this sense, Jesus was trying to get us back to the Garden of Eden. You know what I mean? Not like, if more people would have, they didn't want to leave society. That's their comfort. People can't lose their comforts. So turning away their comforts to follow Jesus into the dirty woods doesn't seem like a fun fucking trip. He knew that. That's why he didn't leave. He could have left on his own. Jesus could have been one with the Father by himself. But he didn't want to be alone because he doesn't like seeing people sin. He died because he knew we were going to continue sinning. That was the reason why he got pushed into the city. Well, I mean, that was for his judgment. But his entire thing was to prove that our unjust laws of man are just that, unjust. It proved it. And look, everybody, how many people, in the book, how many people felt like shit after he died? Oh. It's like, you wouldn't take 5 seconds to listen to somebody, but you'll take the word of a man who's killed thousands. The guy who sentenced him to death didn't even believe he believed he was innocent as well. But the Roman Empire is a government, and it had to do what it could to uphold its authority. But Jesus got to the point where he was awakened. He was just a man who became he was just a man who became awakened in a very dark world. And he seemed so bizarre to them. Why? Because nowadays you don't see people being nice generally to just because they want to be. They don't see them being selfless to help somebody out. Well, I did this, that, and the other. Listen, generally, the minority does not outnumber the minority. Okay? Just because you're one of 100,000 people that are genuine, that doesn't overstate the fact that there are a lot of selfish people out there. And if you don't think so, we wouldn't be in this situation, right? And it's like, wow, there's only so many people that hold the world's wealth. I don't care. They can have all the wealth they want. Do you know why they have all the wealth? Because they tricked you into buying their stupid shit. Why'd you buy it? Because you wanted to. I don't think you were. I think you were just wanting. You were just wanting because all you want to do is consume. Is that all you're going to do your entire life is consume? What happens when you can't consume no more? What happens when you fall and you can't find out what you can consume? What are you going to do then? I mean, it's just a general idea, but like a lot of people that might even find my channel might they might not be in this category. They might be finding their way this way. You know what I mean? That's kind of the gist. It's a perspective. We all have a perspective on the world. And that's another thing too. Don't let people trash anecdotal evidence, because anecdotal evidence is experience. There are people out there that abuse that whole 100%. But do not discredit anecdotal evidence. That's just somebody telling you what they see. You can, like I said, take it in. Don't hold on to it. All you got to do is take a whiff of it. What they step in? You ain't got to fucking dive deep into their knowledge or anything like that. Break it down. Figure out what the hell they were talking about. It might influence you at some point. You never know. The smallest thing can have the biggest influence on somebody. You never know. All you got to do is just look for it. Right. Your perspective, when it becomes no longer yours, that's when you give up your ego. When you give up your ego, you start. It's a sense like, if I can help myself, right, then I can help others. In a sense, I get rid of my ego and thinking that I don't need help. I am this person. I blah blah blah. You're nobody. You are spirit holding onto a body. Do you want to be Jason for the rest of your life? For the rest of eternity? Or would you like to find a way to make it to Dale, but understand what you're doing? And as I think about it, you know, kind of like the awakening thing is based on the flow of consciousness and how it works together with everybody. Like, if that guy eats some, you know, like, if that, well, I'm trying to put it in because it's psychological, right? That's the whole thing. Your body is physical, can react in different ways, but your consciousness is different. It's a psychological playground, not a physical playground. So, like, okay, I'll go back to the conduit idea. So if you have a conduit, somebody that's got a perspective on other, then that perspective is generally trying to uphold the people around them, make them smile, make them feel happy. And don't let them worry. Give them boosts of confidence, stuff like that. Generally, people are happy to be around this conduit. You know what I mean? They usually make friends pretty easily. They're like a chameleon in a sense. They're very adaptable. They can be very skilled in a lot of things. Like, it's because they're using their different like, oh, if you're thinking, oh, how would I do this, but you've never done it before, and you're thinking, and you kind of putting in an idea, and it starts building. Who's to say that's not information from another person who's done what you're doing? But since you're using your brain, you can comprehend it, but you just think it's you. You just think it's you trying to focus on what you could do to make it. But in general, it could very well be another human's perspective that you're kind of dipping into. You know what I mean? Because the information's there. The information is there. You just got to tap into it. You know what I mean? Understanding is the understanding is a field full of unquestioned answers. Because you can ask anything in the fucking world to in your head, and you'll regurgitate something. Something will come back. It might be new. It might be sometimes I think something is new is when you get so it's when you get like a idea or a wow type of thing, like a eureka type. Like those could be new ideas that could help benefit the universe in a sense. You know what I mean? But like the perspective of like the awakening is you're awakened to the idea of all the perspective of the world, even the perspective of the world. But you can go higher. Like awakening is you can go up higher in levels. Like you could like take the perspective of a bug to take the perspective of a elephant, and then take the perspective of the planet, take the perspective of the Milky Way. Like it's like basing your understanding of how your body works and comparing it to how the universe works. It's going to be different because as above so below, but the similarities come in the symbols of it, right? It's not necessarily the thing, it's the symbols of it. And that's kind of the thing too with symbolism and shit like that. I don't care much for symbolism. Yeah, I understand it in a way, but like I don't I don't care. But the symbols, there are symbols there that are like they're not like drawn symbols. They're comparative symbols. Because it's like, well, the tree and the roots are two different things, right? But they're a part of the same system. But their environments are completely two different environments. But what's happening down on the bottom is the cause of what's happening up top. You can't have one without the other type of shit. You know what I mean? So you can even take perspectives of trees, I believe. And I got a theory on like uh I got a theory on like plants and stuff like that. Like I think our consciousness down to the bare minimal comes from plants. Like it comes from the uh, reaction of the light from the sun on a plant that sends signals down to its roots. And between the draw flower, sorry, little crappy flower. All right, so you got the soil, and right below that, you got soil. It's gonna be backwards. Right here, so is where your seed starts. Starts about an inch in the ground, right? And then what happens? So the roots start first. So that lets you know that uh, it's gaining support, right? It needs support in order to raise itself up, because you gotta crawl before you walk, right? So at this point, when the energy of the sun hits it, and then you get your roots, right? Well, our that light hits it, it goes down, and that right at the peak, right at the that point, right in the middle, would be like, in a sense, our pineal. Like this is a hypothetical, but it's a theory based off the psychological theory. Like it's a psychological theory, but it puts it into perspective of how things work together, you know? So a flower grows before a human does, right? So we're going to generalize that first. So then light hits a plant and its energy flows down to the middle point. That's where we are, right? And we've heard of golems and shit like that before. Whatever. Or like golems are like an attempt to recreate what this is in my idea. But like, so when you got your root system, it's odd how it's kind of got a nervous system like look to it, like a human's nervous system. Not just humans. I mean, all above ground species have nervous systems, right? This is where this as above, so below kind of comes into handy. So when your roots are going down into the ground, they are every inch of that is getting pulsated with energy, right? And when that happens, it creates a form in the dirt or in the soil, right? And that form would give it body, right? But we don't see that because it's underground. But so we don't know what the personality of the plant actually is. We just see the flower that it's helped produce, in a sense. Like everything emotional, everything like not physically above the ground is like the important shit of the flower. And nobody cares about that because it's in the soil. I mean, you care about it in the sense that you should take care of it, but you don't care about it because it's not as pretty as the flower. But the roots are the information, the knowledge, the reason the plant grew into a beautiful flower. Because you could put a seed in shitty soil and it will never grow because the environment's not good, right? So you got to have a good environment for your seed to grow. But if you do have like a mediocre environment, your plant will look mediocre, right? So your environment plays a big role on your plants, right? So as above, so below, you just flip it upside down, right? So since our idea is a consciousness, so these this root system is now our nervous system for the earth. We're just inverted as a plant. And, our experience actually is coming from the plant, right? Or like our consciousness is flowed through the plant in a sense. If you were to, and this is just a theory again, like I said, is like, I like to think, so I try to add different type of perspectives on my, on my belt just to see what kind of fits better. But like psychologically, a plant can like experience the same type of environmental challenges as a human. You know what I mean? Like people could be overshadowed and it can allow them to not grow, right? So like as a plant's environment is based on where it stays, right? So it's like its environment, like if you drop a seed and it never moves, this environment is its new environment and it will survive based on how its environment is, right? So like if you have a human, then like their nervous system would be the roots, and that's where their information center comes from. The environment around the human is what's developing the flower in a sense. You know what I mean? Because it's as above, so below. Like you have to put the similarities together. You have to see the symbolism that there's roots, there's nervous system, like psychologically, if the environment's not good, if the flower's not going to be good. If the like, I mean, I can go on like some more, but like my video's already getting long enough. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about awakening. I know it's kind of a longer video again. I'm just kind of trying to gain my perspective. I'm trying to branch my perspective out more, and like, I've had these ideas for a while and I've never known how to approach them. So I've just been going at it. I'm sorry if it's all choppy and whatever, but I will try to explain the premise of the idea of what I was talking about, like awakening. Like, I don't believe it's anything special. I just think it's the people who gain awakening are the ones who will gain awakening, but they've spread that awakening, and it could possibly lead to, like, if we get down here to, like I said, the natural part of life, then we could possibly see more people awakening up, or just like kind of adapting themselves, because humans are very adaptable. It doesn't matter if you're dumb or smart, whatever. Like, and again, like I said, like, it's not whatever intelligence I have is not from me. Even if I were dumb, I still don't think it's from me. I wouldn't think it then. My, like, since my essence doesn't come from me, like, my mind is just a conglomerate of what I've been living right now. You know what I mean? Like, it's only from my time here is what I can hold on from my brain. It's like a locker in high school. Like, I can gather what I can throughout the year, but at the end of the year, I'm not taking any of that shit with me. The only thing I'm taking is whatever I put in my brain, like, legit, or what, like, as a kid. But in this sense, it's more of my psyche. I'm kind of training my psyche to be a little more adapt with the consciousness, because I would assume that I am awakened. I've been trying for years, trying to figure out what it is. I didn't think it was awakening at first when I was going at it. And then, over time, I have to assume it is, because that's the only answer that I've come to. And I'm not saying that's anything special. It's not. I guarantee you it's not. It's been a fucking hellhole for a long time. And me talking about it is probably the relief I probably need to help kind of stabilize my mind. But if we can get away from having one perspective and gain all perspective, all you got to do is put yourself in another pair of shoes. Not literally, metaphorically. Use your brain. You if you don't use it, you'll lose it. Like, honestly, if you want to become an awakened person, you need to give up your perspective. You need to ask, you need to do your inner work, your inner alchemy. Your inner alchemy is just rejuvenating yourself to the spirit, or the consciousness. You're just connecting your tether back to the consciousness. It's nothing special. I mean, it is special in times like these, very much so. But back in Native American times, that wouldn't have been special. They could send you off into the, and like, they talk about, like, the kids in the like, oh, they send kids out in the woods to do all, yeah, because you kind of have to have a shitty part in your environment in order to have a good part. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, you have to do something that's gonna challenge that kid's psyche. You have to. You can't babysit them all the time. Sure, there are some fucking tribes and stuff like that that probably did some gnarly stuff, but in general, majority of the people were pretty mellow, I'm sure. They probably had confrontations. They probably had people that they didn't like. To be honest, they probably didn't take up the entire fucking nation. They probably had some communities that probably didn't even know some other communities even existed. Because a lot of our intelligence that comes from society is provided. It's never gained. It's given to you. So the intelligence that you're given is not the same as the intelligence that you earn. That's the difference between knowing and understanding. Because the shit that you're provided compared to the shit that you're actually learning for yourself, not picking up a fucking book to, no, like thinking. You're legitimately thinking for yourself. And that's the whole point of awakening. Is like you need to think. You need to think, you need to think, you need to think. Don't oh, don't overthink because you don't want to stress yourself out. You don't want to you can get into panic attacks if you actually go down this road of awakening, if you're true with it, you can have panic attacks. You could bring yourself up to a higher vibration that your body's not comfortable with yet. And I think that's where a lot of panic attacks come from. Is a lot of people, their mind slips into a higher vibration that their body isn't prepared for. And it's not saying that it's like a super high. Some of them could very well be a super high vibration, but and also some of them could be just hypochondriacs. Honestly, there's a lot of people out there like that too. But you got to determine. That's why you got to think for yourself, because you have to determine the outliers from the people that are on it, just being genuine. And sometimes that's very hard. Like sometimes I don't even I get gut feelings, but sometimes I don't chase after them. I don't, because sometimes I don't really care. Like it's really not that big of a situation. The guy can have the parking spot, whatever. I don't care. But anyway, that's all I got. Peace.